you're here, right?
Right.
So, euphoria accompanies the depressing effect of depressions, as those tolerance and withdrawal symptoms. In addition, alcohol slow down our reaction and judgmental by slowing down brain processes. So, if it's possible, I think not to drink is very good, like for you, and then not to drink caffeine.
Mm.
Because if the person is very sensitive for the hormone, so
Oh,
yeah, I'd like to keep the caffeine, drink coffee, but I think I'm addicted. I think so. Yeah.
yeah,
And
4 cups.
yeah. So inhibition of different brain regions causes behavioral changes. For example, when enough alcohol is ingested to affect the cerebellum, our motor coordination is dramatically affected, eventually making it difficult or impossible for the user to even stand. Yeah, even stand is really difficult for the person, drunken person, because it is so widespread and more research has been done on alcohol than any other psychoactive drug. And uh, hallucinogens, also sometimes called psychedelics, do not necessarily speed up or slow down the body. These drugs cause changes in perceptions of reality, including sensory hallucination, loss of identity, and vivid fantasies. Common hallucinogens include LSD. Have you heard this one? LSD?
No, I'm not really familiar with that.
Yeah. So actually, like psilocybin mushrooms and marijuana. Maybe
Oh, yeah,
marijuana.
that
Yeah, this is very popular for LSD,
one.
and it triggers some hallucinations. And one notable feature of hallucinogens is their persistence. Some amount of these drugs may remain in the body for weeks. If an individual ingests the hallucinogen again during this time period, the new dose of the chemical is added to the lingering amount, creating more profound and potentially dangerous effect. This effect is sometimes called reverse tolerance because the second dose may be less than the first but causes the same or greater effects. Effects of hallucinogens are less predictable than those of stimulant or depression. Opioids such as morphine, heroin, methadone, and codeine are all similar in chemical structure to opium. This is a drug derived from the poppy plant. The opioids, all XX agonists per endorphin, thus powerful painkiller and mood elevators. Opiates causes drowsiness and euphoria associated with elevated endorphin levels. The opiates are some of the most physically addictive drugs. Both they rapidly change brain chemistry and create tolerance and withdrawal symptoms. So, have you ever heard of opiates?
Uh, no, but I've heard of morphine and heroin
Uh,
before.
Yeah. So, is it common in your country to taking some morphine or like heroin? Is it
Uh,
like legal or illegal?
It is illegal.
Uh,
Yeah. I had a coworker before, and he uses like maybe heroin at that time. Yeah.
mm,
So he was very active, and yeah,
really?
the
Oh.
effect.
Mm. So, how did you get there?
To where?
Like your friend or just heroin or the opiates?
Yeah, it was illegal actually. So I don't know, maybe someone sell that to him, and yeah, because
Uh,
we are working at that time, like I was a call center agent before, so our we go to the workplace at 10 p.m. and then work like overnight
oh,
until 8 in the morning.
oh. So in Korea, uh, in using the through website, you can easily get like morphine and marijuana and then the opiates like so we
Legally?
yeah, not legally. It is illegal, but you can get very easily. So this is big like society social problem. So like so many teenagers they
Yeah.
can easily addicted to those kinds of drugs. So but because of like using website and like the website host is in America or Europe, so the police officers cannot easily find the website. So it
Mhm.
is one of the biggest problem in Korea society these days. These
Oh, I
days,
see.
yeah,
Can easily access to that.
yeah. They easily access really, really. So always like like the news and broadcasting says you have to be very careful about uh, like using or just checking your children's mm, yeah, checking your children's using website or uh, internet game like that. So just like using the chat room, they sell. Yeah. So with very cheap money. So it is really, really difficult to find the crime scene and they just to use that one like a cigarette. So
Wow.
yeah, it is really difficult. So and let's turn to new chapter 6, learning. So let's look at overview. So psychologists differentiate between many different type of learning, a number of which we will discuss in this chapter. Learning is commonly defined as a long-lasting change in behavior resulting from experience. Although learning is not the same as behavior, more psychologists accept that learning can best be measured through changes in behavior. Brief changes are now thought to be indicative of learning. Consider, for example, the effects of running a marathon. For a short time afterwards, one's behavior might differ radically, but we would not want to attribute this change to the effects of running. In addition, learning must result from experience rather than from any kind of innate or biological change. Thus, changes in one's behavior as a result of puberty or menopause are not considered due to learning. And firstly, let's look at classical conditioning. So, around the turn of 20th centuries, a Russian physiologist named Ivan Pavlov inadvertently discovered the kind of learning while studying digestion in dogs. Pavlov found that the dogs learn to pair the sound in the environment where they were fed with the food that was given to them. Let me see. And began to salivate simply upon hearing the sounds. As a result, Pavlov deduced the basic principle of classical conditioning. People and animals can learn to associate neutral stimuli with stimuli that produce reflexive, involuntary responses and will learn to respond similarly to the new stimulus as they did to the old one. The original stimulus that elicits a response is known as the unconditional stimulus. So US or UCS. So like this is a dog and then ring the bell and just to give the food with ring the bell. Then finally only ring the bell, the dog respond like the same response with the food. So the US unconditional stimulus is defined as something that elicits a natural reflexive response. In the classic Pavlovism paradigm, the US is food. Yes. Food elicits the natural, involuntary response of salivation. So, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. This response is called the unconditional response, UR or UCR. So through repeated pairing with a neutral timer. Actually, this ring the bell is neutral stimulus, such as a bell. Animals will come to associate finality just to associate with two stimuli together. Ultimately, animals will salivate when hearing the bell alone. Yeah, once the bell elicited salivation, a conditional response, CR, it is no longer a neutral stimulus, but rather a conditional stimulus, like CS. This is after conditioning. Just to bell alone, it just respond and elicit its elevation.
The dog get used to it.
Yeah. And learning has taken place once the animal responds to CS without the presentation of the US. So this learning is also called acquisition, since the animal has acquired a new behavior. Many factors affect acquisition. For example, often a point Repeated pairing of CS and US yields stronger CR. The order and timing of CS and US pairing also have an impact on the strength of conditioning. Generally, the most effective method of conditioning is to present the CS first and then to introduce the US while the CS is still evident. Okay, now return to Pavlov's dogs. Acquisition will occur fastest if the bell is rung and while it is ringing. The dogs are presented with food. This procedure is known as delayed conditioning, and this is less effective method of learning include. Okay. So there is like various conditioning. The other one is like trace conditioning. This is the presentation of the CS and then followed a short break, follow the presentation of the US. And simultaneous conditioning. This is presented at the same time, CS and US. And backward conditioning. US is presented first and then followed by the CS. This method is particularly ineffective, actually. This is very ineffective. So usually use this one, trace conditioning and stimulus conditioning, we use this one per warning. Of course, what can be learned can be unlearned. In psychological terminology, the process of unlearning a behavior is known as extinction. In terms of classical conditioning, extinction has taken place when the CS no longer elicits the CR. Extinction is achieved by repeatedly presenting the CS without the US, thus breaking the cessation between the two. If one rings the bell over and over again and never feeds the dogs will ultimately learn not to salivate to the bell. One fascinating and yet to be adequately explained part of this process is known as spontaneous recovery. Sometimes, after a conditional response has been extinguished and no further training of the animals has taken place, the response briefly reappears upon presentation of the conditional stimulus. This phenomena is known as spontaneous recovery. Often animals conditioned to respond to a certain stimulus will also respond to similar stimuli, although the response is usually smaller in magnitude. The dog may salivate to a number of bells, not just the one with which they were trained. This tendency to respond to similar CS is known as generalization. Subjects can be trained, however, to tell the difference or discriminate between various stimuli. To train the dogs to discriminate between bells, we would repeatedly pair the original bell with presentation of food, but we would intermix trials where we presented other bells that we did not pair with food. So there are some basic conditioning phenomena in Pavlov work. So there is some terminology, acquisition, extinction, spontaneous recovery, generalization, discrimination. So acquisition is like this. The dog learns to salivate to the bell. They're just conditioned. And extinction is this. The dog unlearns the bell food connection and cease to salivate to the bell. And spontaneous recovery. After extinction and a period of rest, the dog salivates when hearing the bell. And generalization, the dog salivates to other bell-like noises. And discrimination, the dog learns to salivate only to the sound of a specific bell. And classical conditioning can also be used with humans. In one famous, albeit ethically questionable study, John Watson and Layner conditioned a little boy named Albert to fear a white rat. Little Albert initially liked the white fluffy rat. However, by repeatedly fearing it with a loud noise, Watson and Layner taught Albert to cry when he saw the rat. In this example, the loud noise is unconscious stimulus because it elicits the involuntary and natural response of fear, unconditional response. And in little Albert's case, crying. The rat is a neutral stimulus that becomes the CS, conditional stimulus, and then CR, conditional response, is crying in response to presentation of the rat alone. The Albert also generalized crying in response to a white rabbit, a man's white beard, and a variety of other white, fluffy things. This example is an illustration of what is known as aversive conditioning. Aversive conditioning, whereas Pavlov's dog were conditioned with something pleasant, but baby Albert was conditioned to have a negative response to the white rat. Aversive conditioning has been used in a number of more socially constructive ways. For instance, to stop biting their nails, some people paint them with truly horrible tasting materials. Nail biting, therefore, becomes associated with a terrible taste, and the biting should cease. So this is what the difference between classical conditionings. And so up to now, do you have any questions about today's lecture?
No, I don't have any questions on this one. This was actually familiar to me when I was studying back then in university, but I don't know the terms like the extinction and generalization. So these are new words to
Uh,
me.
Okay, so let me see. So there's more, I think. Uh, what about this time have time like let's call it a time and then having a makeup class during weekend.
On weekends. Okay, that would be fine. What time in the weekend?
And then I prepare this Saturday afternoon. So during 1 to 6 p.m. I'm available. So are you okay at that time?
Yeah, yeah. I'm available at that time.
So okay, then let's have some makeup time at that time, and then uh, this Saturday I have to go to hospital in the morning. So and also tomorrow as well. So let's have some classes at 6:20 like today. Okay.
Okay, tomorrow.
Okay. So see you tomorrow at 6:20.
Mm. Okay, so shall we have two classes tomorrow or just one?
What about having a class just to 6:20 to 7:20?
Okay. Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay. So see you tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you so much for today. I learned a lot from these information.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Take good care of your health.